Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 14th of February. So coming to the first article, Woods and Trees. The context here is that recently the Environment Ministry has released Indian State of Forest Report 2017, and this is a very important piece of document for UPSC papers. Both in the prelims this will have its importance and also in the mains paper. So this is the importance of this article. Now coming first and foremost about something about this report itself. This report is prepared by the Forest Survey of India. This is an organization working under the Ministry of Environment, and this report is released biannually. That is once in every 2 years. That means the previous report was released in the year of 2015. Now this current report of 2017 is the 15th such report to be released. That means that this report is continuously being released since the year 1987. So this is something that you need to know about this report. Now coming to some salient features about the Indian State of Forest Report of 2017. Now these salient features are something that are much more important for the prelims part rather than the mains. A question is going to be expected from this report, and this topic should be covered for the prelims. So that is the importance. Now the first analysis of the report is that India's tree and forest cover is something that has increased by 1% compared to the previous report in the year 2015. So this is indeed a good development. In terms of figures, you need to know some aspects that approximately 8,021 square kilometer is something that is the increase in the India's tree and forest cover. So this is something that you need to know. Another analysis is with regards to India and the global trend. Now here the report has said that globally there is a trend of decreasing forest cover, and contrary to that, in India this forest cover is something that has increased. So this is indeed a good precedence. This is something that is analyzed. Now coming to the total forest cover in the country, the total forest cover is 21.54%. Now in this backdrop, you should know that the government has an aim of having a total forest cover of approximately 33% of the entire geographical area in the country. This is something that you need to know. Of this 21.54% also, the forest cover is divided into three parts. One is the very dense forest, then it is the moderately dense forest, and third it is the open forest. The very dense forest comprised of 2.99%, the moderately dense forest is 9.38%, the open forest is 9.18%. Now this division between these very dense, moderately dense and open forest is based upon tree density. So if the tree density is greater than 70%, then it comprises of very dense forest. If the tree density is between 40 to 70%, then it is moderately dense forest. And if the tree density is between 10 to 40%, then it is an open forest. So this is something that you should know. Another thing is that has been highlighted here is that the forest and tree cover combined is something that has increased to 24.39%. This is also an important figure. Also, you need to note that the very dense forest cover, that is 2.99%, is also the cover which has increased, and this is something that the Ministry of Environment is somehow crediting the government for, because it is the very dense forest which contribute maximum to absorbing carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. So that is something that has been analyzed in this particular report. Another thing is the state-wise analysis, which is important. Now area-wise, Madhya Pradesh has the maximum amount of area under forest cover. This is followed by Arunachal Pradesh, which is followed by Chhattisgarh. This is something that you should know. Now, percentage of the geographical area, if from the percentage wise it is analyzed, then Lakshadweep has the maximum percentage of its area under forest, followed by Mizoram, followed by Andaman and Nicobar. Another thing is that there are states where the maximum forest cover has increased. These states are largely Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Odisha and Telangana. This is important. Another thing which is very important this time is that this report of 2017 is the first report to include an analysis on the water bodies within the forest. So this is something that is important, that first time water bodies within forest have been assessed, and in this analysis it is the states of Maharashtra, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh which have shown an expansion of water bodies within the forest. So this is something that you need to know. Another thing is that there are 5 states where the forest cover has decreased, and these states are the states of Mizoram, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Tripura and Meghalaya. Now one thing that is common to all these states where the forest cover has decreased is that these states are the northeastern states. So this is something that is important. Another thing is that what are the causes for this decrease in the forest cover? Some causes, for example, shifting cultivation, also biotic pressures, rotational felling of trees or diversion of forest land for developmental activities, submergence of the forest cover, agricultural expansion, natural disasters. So these are the causes for the decrease in the forest cover in these northeastern states. This is something that you need to know. Now, as I've discussed before also, that India has a target of 33%. Now, at present, it is 15 states and union territories which have already achieved this target of 33% of geographical area being under forest cover. So this is the present scenario which you should know. Also, India has been ranked 10th globally based on its forest cover of 24.4%. Now, this is indeed some major achievement, because India only has 2.4% of the entire land in the world. So this is something vital, and this 2.4% of the land caters to a population of 17% global population. 17% of the world population is in India, and also 18% of the livestock population in the world is in India. So with this huge burden also, India has ensured that 24.4% of its area is under forest cover. So this is what the report is saying is a major achievement, and as a result of which India has been ranked 10th globally. This is something that you should know. Another aspect which is vital here is about the trees outside forests. Now here the reference is to the agroforestry schemes and the private forestry schemes. So these are the trees outside the forest, and these have also increased. So this is something that the report has highlighted. All these data and figures are vital for prelims. Now, coming to the analysis, which is important with regards to this report of 2017, the first issue is with regards to a broad brush assessment. Now, what you understand by a broad brush assessment is that the report simply highlights that there is an increase in forest cover, or for that matter, the forest cover is 24.4%. The highlight is only this, and focus is not made about the quality of the forest. For example, in this total area, approximately only 2.99 area is what is the very dense forest area, and the rest of area is largely moderately dense or open forest. So the quality of forest is something that is decreasing. Quality forests only comprise approximately 3%. So this is something that is a cause of concern, and the report doesn't specifically highlight that. So that is something that has been analyzed in the editorial. Another thing is with regards to the forest covers. Now here something is important which has been analyzed is that though there is an increase in the forest cover, but this is not the same kind of forest that did exist in India traditionally. The biodiversity of these forests is something that is very low. Also, the plantation types are largely commercial plantations, and the traditional and native tree breeds in India is something that has been lost. So that is one analysis which has been drawn. Stemming from this is the analysis with respect to the forest types in India. Now here you need to know that previously, geographically, it was analyzed that India has 16 types of forests and also 221 subtypes of forests. Now, this analysis, the editorial is saying that these figures were traditionally prevalent in India. They were largely at a time of pre-colonial era or the colonial era, and in the aftermath of India's independence, this does not hold true on ground because the forests have largely shrunken, and the traditional types is something that has been lost. So that is one case which has been analyzed. Another thing is with regards to the decreased forest cover in the northeastern states. Now you need to understand that the northeastern states comprise of the biodiversity hotspot in the country. So if there is a loss of forest cover in these states, then the net losses is something that is very high. It might happen that on an average, there is an increase of 1% in the forest cover, but the value of this 1% increase compared to the loss of forest cover in northern eastern states is minimal. So that is something that has been analyzed, that this needs to be curbed because of the net value of forest in northeast is much high compared to the forest in any other part of the country. That is something that is important. Another thing is with regards to the benefits of robust forests. Now here what the editorial has analyzed is that a forest which has been formed over several years is a robust forest, and it has several other advantages. For example, it helps in flood control, it helps in climate moderation. So these benefits of forest is something that the report is not analyzing, and merely painting a picture that India has 24.4% of its area under forest cover will not justify the quality of these forests, and these forests are not providing the services which traditionally forests provided. So this is something that has been highlighted in the editorial. Another issue which has been flagged is with regards to the monoculture plantations. Now here the editorial discusses that there is a policy in India to implement monoculture plantations, and this is largely even being followed by the government departments. Several forest development corporations in many states are also advocating for monoculture plantation. This is something that the author has criticized, and he has said that this needs to be replaced by scientific reforms, and native breeds are what should be advocated. So this is one analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the open forest. Now Amongst the forests, the open forests form approximately 9.18%, and these open forests have a tree density of only 10 to 40%. So definitely there is a huge scope for growing more trees in this particular area. So here again the editorial is making a case that it is this area which should be focused on, and indigenous trees should be grown in this area to restore the old forest types of the country. That is what is important. Another thing is that of open cast mining is what has been analyzed. Now open cast mining is a form of mining where the entire land is used up for mining, and in this case it has huge adverse impacts on the forest cover and other environmental impacts. So a case is being drawn that open cast mining should be completely banned in India to protect the forest. Now this is the entire analysis which has been given with regards to this report in the editorial. Indeed, as I have mentioned, the report is of utmost importance for both prelims as well as mains. Now coming to the next article, Ramallah recall. Now the context here is, we've discussed yesterday also, that Prime Minister of India is on his maiden visit to Palestine. It is also the first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Palestine, and as a result of which this visit is a historic visit. Now some issues is what has been discussed here. The first issue is with regards to a delicate balance between Israel and Palestine. Now as you all know that there is a conflict between Israel and Palestine, and there are hardly any countries in the world who have a balanced relation with both these countries, and India has now entered in one of those exceptional countries which has a good relation both with Palestine as well as with Israel. So this is something that is important for India. Another thing is that India had this meeting of the Prime Minister into Palestine comes in the backdrop of India's recent vote in the United Nations General Assembly, where India had voted in the favor of Palestine, where India rejected the idea of Jerusalem being declared as the capital of Israel. So this is something that is important. Another thing is that of our principal support. Now this is a key word and you should replicate it in your answers, that India has a policy of a principal support to a sovereign and independent Palestine. Despite India's warmth with Israel, India has stood by its principal support. So this is something that is important. Another thing is the policy of political realism. Now yesterday I had given you a key word which was the dehyphenated policy. Now today the term that is important is the political realism which India is following now. That means that India is giving equal importance to Israel as well as to Palestine, and it has separated both these countries as previously India used to consider Israel and Palestine as a single unit. This has been separated, and now India has separate bilateral relation with both these countries, though Palestine is not yet a country, so calling it a country would be a flawed approach, but definitely India has separate relation with both Israel as well as Palestine. So this is something that is important. Now coming to the importance of Israel for India. Previously, when Israel's Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, has visited India, we had discussed in much detail the importance that Israel holds for India. For example, Israel has immense importance for procuring defense equipment. Also, it has to offer agricultural technology to India. So Israel is a key ally of India, and in that respect, India cannot hamper its relation with Israel. So that is one analysis. Another issue is, which is important, is that on the question of Palestine, Israel faces political isolation in the entire world. Not only that, Israel hardly has any bilateral relation with the Gulf countries in West Asia. So it would not have been right for India to outrightly favor Israel over the Palestine issue. So that is something that has been analyzed, that because of this political isolation of Israel, India has not been able to explicitly favor Israel, and India maintains its principal support to Palestine. So this is something that is important. Another analysis is with regards to the other West Asian countries which are much vital for India. For trade purposes, they are much important to India. Also, India is now investing in the oil sector of these countries. So all these countries are important for India. So India has preferred not to disappoint these countries, and so India has maintained a good relation with Palestine also. So this is something that is important. Another important aspect is with regards to some changing nuances. Now some slight changes in the policy have happened with respect to Palestine. For example, though India is supporting a sovereign Palestine, India has restrained in mentioning the borders of Palestine. Now the issue is that there are ingressions by Israel within the erstwhile Palestinian area which has been subscribed by the United Nations. So in that respect, India has maintained a silence. India has not spoken about that, and also India has restrained in calling East Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. So these are some tweakings which India has done in its foreign policy vis-a-vis Palestine, but indeed explicitly India has ensured some restraint. So that is something that is important. As I discussed yesterday also, West Asia, Israel and Palestine, all of them are very, very important for this year. So coming to the next article, the danger of counterfactuals. Now the context here is that the counterfactual narrative is what has been mooted by the Prime Minister of India. In one of his speeches in the parliament, he had said that if it wasn't Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru who was the first Prime Minister of India. Instead of him, if it was Shastri who would have been the Prime Minister, or Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, he would have been the Prime Minister, then in such a scenario, history would have been different. So these kind of allegations is something that has been criticized in this editorial. Now, largely you can clearly understand that this will have some political undertone. Not going into the politics of this issue, the issues which will be vital for us, we will restrict our discussion to those issues. Now, the first issue is with regards to Prime Minister's response to the President's address. Now, here you need to know that the time of this speech by the Prime Minister is something that has been discussed here. The Prime Minister was giving his response to the President's address after the budget which was presented in the Parliament, and this was not an opportune time for the Prime Minister to make such statements. This is something that is vital. It is an important criticism. This was a time where the Prime Minister should have spoken on the policy statements of the government and the financial implications of those policies, rather than playing this political game, and that too within the Parliament, is something that has been unwelcome. Time and again, there are debates that is the standard of parliamentary debate falling in the country. So if such kind of an opportunity is provided for you to discuss, then in that case, you can use this as a prime example. So this is the first analysis. Another analysis is with regards to the allegations over past issues. Now here you need to know some past issues like partition. Also the Jammu and Kashmir issue is what has been raised. So this is something that is unwelcome because it takes away an objective analysis of history and brings subjectivity to it, and politics over history is something that is not a healthy precedent. Politics should be on the current issues which are of major importance to the country, and politics over historical issues is something that is not a sign of a mature democracy. So that is something that you should understand. Another thing is that partition as an emotionally sensitive issue in India. Now here you need to know that partition was a very painful event both for India as well as for Pakistan. It resulted in massive mass migrations. Approximately it caused 1 million deaths. So some restraint and some sensitivity is something that the politicians should show with regards to a discussion on partition, and sensitivities of the people is something that should not be fanned in this case. That is something that is important. Another analysis is with regards to the causes of partition. Now this becomes important because the Prime Minister has made a statement that partition would not have occurred only if it wasn't for the Congress party. So in that case, a question can come even in the post-independence history aspect that what were the causes for partition of India. Now this was not a single cause that a single party caused a partition. Rather, many causes was what was responsible. For example, the cause of politicization of religious identities that happened at that point of time was a major cause. Another thing is that this religious identity was something that was harnessed into by the different nation theories is what has been analyzed here. Another thing is that the colonial policy of divide and rule between Hindus and Muslims was also somehow responsible for the partition of India. Also, the roles played by the elites at that point of time is something that is vital. So there were a number of causes for this, and accusing one single political party is something that cannot be justified. So that is one claim. Another thing which is very important is with regards to the lessons of history. Now here the editorial makes a case where it has been analyzed that the issue of partition was a painful one, and this has several lessons to offer to the present generation. These lessons should be that in any country, one should avoid politicizing or fanning the sensitive religious issues, or communal politics is something that should be refrained from. Now, these lessons is what India has not learned, and till today, communal politics is something that is continuing. You can give several examples of communal politics in India. So that is something that has been highlighted, that these lessons is what should have been learned, and this is something that has not been learned, and this is something that is not acceptable. So that is one analysis which is important. Another thing is with regards to the ineradicable scars on the collective memories. Now here you need to understand that whenever such kind of politicization of religious identities is what happens, then it leads to immense violence, and this causes an ineradicable scar on the collective conscience of the people. So this is something that should be learnt from, and this should be avoided. Communal violence of any kind should be avoided within India, and it is this that should be debated on rather than who caused partition and all of that. So as I've discussed before also, a political aspect of this is something that you shouldn't focus on. But yes, somewhere you can use these examples in your answer. So that is what is the relevance here. Now coming to the next article, how to handle big data. Now the context here is that there is a rise of big data globally and also in India. Now, first and foremost, you need to understand what is big data. Big data is a large data set that may be analyzed computationally to reveal some patterns, trends, and associations. And this will help in analyzing the human behaviors, and it can have some advantages for the governments. So that is the context in which big data is being analyzed in this editorial. Now, coming to some issues related to big data. The first issue is with regards to the creation of big data. Now, why is this data being, so much of data being created? That is what has been analyzed. This is largely being created because of the great submission of data by the citizens for different agencies. For example, in our day-to-day activities, we are using a lot of internet. We are posting on social media. There is an increased usage of credit and debit cards. There is an increased pattern of online shopping and online purchases. So all of this is resulting in a scenario where there is a continuous expansion of the big data. Also, it is analyzed that some social media networking services company have so much of data that they are unable to today leverage it. So this is one issue which is important, that why is this data being created? That is something that is vital. Now, another analysis is with regards to data mining. Now, this data mining has to be done from this huge big data reservoir. That is something that has been analyzed here. So here the author is making a claim that data mining from big data can have some advantages for every country. For example, it can help understand the behaviors, and this is something that can be used for facilitating planning processes by the government. So that is some advantage of data mining from big data. Another thing is that there is some challenges to data mining is what has been highlighted. For example, there is a huge amount of data. So that is one challenge to data mining. Another is an issue of biased or false information which is there. Also, there may be a low quality data which is present. Another thing is that some sources may not be reliable sources. There could be some technical glitches. There could be an improper understanding of the larger picture. There could be a lack of proper statistical tools and resources which is required to analyze this big data. So all of these things is what has been highlighted as the challenges to data mining. So that is something that you should know. Another thing which has been analyzed is the case of Google flu trends. Now, what was this Google flu trends? This was a case in US where Google had assured the US government, it had made a claim that Google is going to come up with the flu trends in the country, and this would do based on the searches of influenza virus or flus. So on that basis, Google would come out with these trends. But this was a major failure. Google failed to come up with adequate and accurate trends of flu within US. So this is something that you need to know as a stark case study with regards to data mining from big data, which was a failure. So this is something that can be given as an example. Another analysis is with regards to regulation on big data to ensure that it is limited. Now here the editorial makes a case that for reaping the true benefits of big data, which can help in planning, which can provide as a major resource for the government, it is vital that there should be some regulation on big data, which means that the sharing of data on every single podium is something that the government should ban, and this will ensure that wherever data is shared, it is some genuine data which is being shared, and this will provide some limits on the big data, and this will help easier the data mining. So this is something that has been advocated in this editorial. Another thing that has been highlighted is about some vital skills which are needed for data mining. For example, these skills are like analytical skills, decision making skills, logical thinking skills, problem solving skills, advanced computational expertise, and statistical expertise is what is something that is needed for data mining. So these skills have been highlighted. This is something that you should know. Now, despite some benefits of big data, there are also some threats of big data. This could be used for surveillance. This could be used for misuse of personal information. So that is something that is there, that has been highlighted here. Now, what is the importance of this editorial? That will ensure some clarity to you. First is that you can use the benefits of big data whenever you are discussing about government planning process. There you can say that the government can use big data for better and efficient planning. So that is one utility. Another thing is that this editorial becomes important in analyzing the case where technology is replacing humans. So wherever you have to give an example that technology will replace humans, there you can give this example that it is not possible because of the shortcomings in technology, and these are the shortcomings in big data. So this is an important example that can be used there. Also, some ill effects of technology, if you have to use, then you can give an example of big data. So that is the entire relevance of this particular editorial for your papers. Now with this we finish, but before that, some questions based on today's discussion. Please try and attempt them in a word limit of 150 words. I'm sure you will be able to attempt all of these questions based on a discussion today. Now with this we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching and I hope to see you tomorrow.